talk about our books. And what I mean by our books, I mean books that are written by African Americans, books that you find in the African American section, like in Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. I want to talk about our books. Okay, now this has been irking me for a while, so this may be considered a rant, but I just want to get this off my chest, and this is a good vehicle for me to do this. So much of our art forms have been, so many of our art forms have been taken over and reduced down to the lowest common denominator. The numbers of African Americans that like listen to jazz, that may be into real R&B versus hip hop, you know, I mean, whatever you want to blame it on, whether you want to blame it on mass media, the communication companies, as you know, they own whatever, the distribution, publishers, whatever you want to blame it on. It seems like our art form, the art form as it's pushed out to us and mass produced, is always the lowest common denominator. Meaning, and let me just say this as it relates to like music, I like pretty much every form of music you can imagine, with the exception, of course, like, okay, I don't want to hear any twangy country. I don't want to hear any yodeling, you know. But I like, and as far as art forms, like, well, pretty much every music type genre generated out of like the blues and that type of thing. But hip hop, R&B, whether it's classic R&B, contemporary R&B, neo soul, 70s, 60s, whatever. I love all of that. Jazz, I love all of that. And we know what we get. I don't even have to go into it. On the music front, we know what we get pushed out to us. You can make the argument, well, that's what we're buying, so that's what they're giving us. I don't really, I think that may be, that has some weight, but not totally, because I don't know how to say this, but sometimes you end up wanting that thing that has been mass produced because you're not exposed to anything else to even have a taste for anything else, because that's all you've really, you know, soaked up. So yeah, you think, oh yeah, that's what I want, that's what I want to hear, that right there, oh yeah, that's it, that's banging. But if you haven't really been exposed to something else, or you haven't had the opportunity, the way the stuff is mass produced, to hear other stuff, you know, equally or even somewhat close to equal, is it that you really love that, or is it that what you have been conditioned to? You follow? So that same thought process as it relates to our books. Now, our books was almost like the last art form that, you know, still had, it wasn't taken over. So now, what I noticed first, and I'll tell you what set me off today, what I noticed first is that when you go into like the Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, you know, type of thing, we don't have a, gosh, I was trying to think if it's another Borders. We don't have a Borders here in my town. But they have this section, and when you go in this section, the African American fiction, it's like hoochie, gangsta, player, Mac, tricked out, all of that. That's our section. And the majority of our covers have the thug, the ladies half dressed. You know, I saw one book today where it was just a woman's behind. I mean, just in the general fiction section, you know, that's what it is. But our books, when you look at them now in their section, take a look when you go back. When our books that are in the section that is designed to be our, that's what it is. And that, to me, is horrible. because now we've been reduced. Our literature that's mass produced has been reduced down to that. Booty shaking, hustling, all of that. That is what is being mass produced, put on the shelves, and under the heading of African American fiction, African American literature. And there are truly good writers out there, African American writers, who are writing solid stories and good books and not that type of deal. But now this is what has been defined, and this is what you see. This is the visual that you get when you go to see our section in the bookstore. So some of those books may be really, really good, but for me, I'm put off by it. So, you know, it used to be a magazine that used to cater to African American books. Oh gosh, what is it? Oh, I know the initials were B&B, because they stopped carrying it in Barnes and Noble, or either they stopped publishing it. Because I used to go to the back of that magazine to kind of tell me what was going on, and throughout it had new books coming out by black authors, and I would check them out, and I found a lot of authors that way, books I really enjoyed, that the story was just tight. I mean, I'm not looking for, you know, no sugar-coated Andy and Barney kind of stories. These real deal stories, real life, but it's not packaged up and sold to me like you gotta be a hooker, a prostitute, or, you know, some kind of player, hustler, or whatever. You gotta be down with some kind of gang or whatever for me to read it. And that's what I find to be pathetic. That's what's in the stores now. So, okay, today there's a new bookstore in my city called Urban Knowledge. They advertise on the radio. It's more so just saying, you know, this is an African American bookstore. You know, you can, you know, just hype it up that way. African American bookstore, you know, it's in one of our malls. Come and check it out. You know, bookstore, blah, 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 that caters to you, blah, blah. Okay, so I go to bookstores all the time. I go to bookstores all the time. I mean, it's very rare on the weekend. I know I'm in there at least 2 weekends out of the month. You know, I go, my daughter go, we grab a seat, we chill out. So, you know, so I'm like, okay, well, I gotta go check this place out. I gotta go see, you know, what's going on, how, you know, what's up. So I go finally to this bookstore today. I felt insulted. It was the worst thing ever. I would not take my daughter into that bookstore because, damn, I mean, everything, all the covers, it looked like I was in like some kind of porn store. All the covers were, you know, that section, that little small section you see in Barnes and Noble and Books A Million. Well, in this story, that is an African American bookstore, or it's marketed as such, and that's what's inside of the store. And it's a pretty good sized space. I mean, it's bigger, or it appears to be bigger anyway, than, like, you know how the Walden books were, like in the mall. A little bit bigger than that. But the covers of all of the books were along the vein of that. And I was like, wow, and they call this urban knowledge. So, well, what exactly are you trying to communicate? I just think that's pathetic. And I'm so outdone by it because I would not even take my daughter into that store. I mean, I wouldn't even, the teenagers, like my nieces and stuff, I wouldn't even want them to go there. So they probably would want to go in there because of what it looks like, you know, but I wouldn't take them to that store. And I was just so, you know, I mean, come on. Our literature now, our writing has been reduced to that. I mean, even if they had named the bookstore hip-hop books or whatever, I mean, maybe I would have been a little less, I don't know. Because I like hip-hop. I like good hip-hop and real hip-hop. So, you know, I like hip-hop. But I'm just saying, our writing, our literature now has been taken over by the lowest common denominator. And that sucks. So what do y'all think? So, urban knowledge here in my city, I won't be back. Trust that. I will not be back. So I'll just continue going. And I was anxious to go. I was anxious to go. I was like, okay, well, you know, I know it's not the big stores, because now all the stores got that little section. But they just had the whole store was there, man. I couldn't get it out of my view. And I was like, but you know, I saw it from an upper level, and I was like, okay, cool, that's it. I'll go in there. Couldn't tell from, you know, when I was up higher what was literally in there. You know, and that was cool. You know, I knew they might not have like the whole, you know, coffee and, you know, the whole little bookstore vibe, because they're new, but it's us. So, you know, I didn't care about any of that. I wanted to go and support and buy something, buy a few books maybe. I walked the whole store. I walked it twice actually, because I was trying to find something redeeming about it so that I could like even just buy something, and I just couldn't do it. I was really kind of pissed, and if it wasn't an older lady working behind the counter, I probably would have said something, but so I just didn't go there. But now, our literature, has it really been reduced to this? I mean, really?